It was a warm summer night, and my friends and I decided to go camping deep in the woods. As we hiked deeper into the wilderness, the air grew thick with a sense of foreboding. The trees seemed to loom taller, and the shadows grew longer. When we finally found a spot to set up camp, we built a fire and settled in for the night. But as the night wore on, things started to get strange. We heard rustling in the bushes and strange noises that sounded like whispers in the wind. And then we saw it. A figure lurking just beyond the trees. At first we thought it was just an animal, but as it drew closer we realized it was something far more sinister. It was a tall and skinny-looking creature seemingly doing its best to imitate a human. A Skinwalker, a creature from Navajo legend, known for its ability to shapeshift and mimic human voices. We huddled together in terror as the Skinwalker circled our campsite, its eyes glowing in the darkness. It seemed to be watching us, studying us, waiting for the right moment to strike. As the night wore on, we tried to stay calm, but the fear was overwhelming. Every sound, every shadow made us jump, and then we heard it. A voice calling out to us, beckoning us deeper into the woods. It was a voice we recognized. The voice of our friend Josh, who was right beside me, trying not to make a sound. But something about the voice was off, wrong. It was like it was coming from multiple directions at once. We knew then that the Skinwalker was playing tricks on us, trying to lure us into the darkness. We slowly packed up our things and fled back to our car as the sun finally came shining through the trees. We could swear we heard laughter from deep within the forest as it knew we were up to something. Nonetheless, we managed to get to our car and leave, never to return to that spot ever again. To this day, I can't shake the feeling of terror that came over me that night. The Skinwalker may be just a legend to some, but to me and my friends it was all too real. And I know that deep in the woods it still waits, watching and waiting for its next victim. I was a seasoned outdoorsman, having spent countless hours exploring the wilderness. But tonight, I found myself in a situation that I never could have imagined. I was lost in a dark forest at night, with no idea which direction to take to find my way back to civilization. The air was cold and damp, and the only sound was the rustling of leaves under my feet. I had been walking for hours, and my feet were sore and blistered. I knew I needed to find shelter soon, but the dense forest offered no respite from the darkness. Suddenly, I heard a chilling howl that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It was a sound I had never heard before, and I had no idea what could have made it. I knew that I needed to find a place to hide, and quickly. I stumbled through the underbrush, searching for a place to shelter myself. And then I saw it. A small cave, barely big enough for me to crawl into. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. I crawled into the cave and huddled in the corner, trying to make myself as small as possible. I could hear the howling getting closer, and my heart pounded in my chest. I knew that whatever was making that noise was hunting me, and I was its prey. The howling grew louder and louder until it felt like it was right outside the cave. I could hear heavy breathing and the sound of something moving in the darkness. And then, suddenly, the noise stopped. I sat there in silence for what felt like hours, waiting for the creature to leave, but it didn't. I could still hear it breathing, and I knew that it was still out there, waiting for me. I tried to calm myself down, but my heart was racing and my hands were shaking. I knew that I needed to be brave, but I felt like I was going to die. And then, just when I thought all hope was lost, I saw a light in the distance. It was faint, but it was there. I knew that it was my only chance. I crawled out of the cave and stumbled through the forest, following the light. I could still hear the creature behind me, but I didn't dare look back. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I stumbled into a clearing. And there, in the center of the clearing, was a small cabin with smoke rising from its chimney. I ran towards the cabin, shouting for help. And then, just as I was about to reach the door, I felt something grab my ankle. I looked down and saw the creature, the yeti, staring back at me with its cold, dead eyes. I screamed and kicked at it, trying to break free. And then, suddenly, it let go. I stumbled into the cabin and collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. The people inside looked at me in shock, and I knew that I must have looked like I had just seen a ghost. I never did find out what happened to the yeti or why it had been hunting me in the first place. But I knew that I had survived, and that was all that mattered. From that day on, I never went into the wilderness alone at night again. And whenever I heard a howling in the distance, I knew that I had come face to face with the ultimate predator and had lived to tell the tale. It was a dark and stormy night, and I was home alone, with nothing but the sound of the rain tapping against the windows and the wind howling outside. I had just settled down to watch a movie when I heard a strange noise coming from the shed in my backyard. At first, I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just the wind playing tricks on me. But as the noise grew louder and more persistent, I knew I had to investigate. I grabbed a flashlight and made my way out into the yard, my heart racing with anticipation and fear. As I approached the shed, the noise grew louder and I could hear something moving around inside. I slowly opened the door, and the beam of my flashlight revealed something that I could not have imagined in my wildest dreams. There, in the corner of the shed, was a creature unlike anything I had ever seen before. It was about the size of a small dog, with thick, scaly skin that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. It had long, spindly legs and razor-sharp claws, and its eyes glowed like two red orbs in the darkness. For a moment, I stood frozen in terror, not knowing what to do or how to react. The creature didn't seem to notice me, though, and it continued to move around the shed, investigating various tools and objects. I couldn't help but feel a sense of fascination and wonder, despite the fear that still gripped me. I had always been interested in cryptozoology and the idea of unknown creatures lurking in the shadows, but I never thought I would encounter one myself. As the creature continued to move around, I took a step closer, trying to get a better look. It was then that it finally noticed me, and it let out a high-pitched screech that sent shivers down my spine. I froze again, afraid that it would attack me, but the creature simply turned and darted out of the shed, disappearing into the night. I stood there for a few moments, still in shock from the experience, before making my way back to the safety of my house. I locked the doors and windows and sat down, trying to process what had just happened. For the rest of the night, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over me. I couldn't help but wonder what other creatures might be lurking in the shadows, just out of sight, and waiting to be discovered. The next morning, I cautiously made my way back to the shed, still unsure of what I might find. But to my surprise, there was no evidence of the creature's presence, no footprints or signs of disturbance, nothing to suggest that it had ever been there. To this day, I'm not sure what it was that I saw in the shed that night. But one thing is certain. I'll never forget the feeling of awe and terror that it inspired, and the sense of wonder and curiosity that still lingers in my mind.